Welcome to Great Shot. This is the Great Shot Podcast, a Cracked Racquets and Tennis Channel Podcast Network production. My name is Alex Gruskin. On today's show, we've got another edition of The Deciding Point, our weekly recap of everything happening in the Division I college tennis world. We're doing things a bit different this week. We are pre-recording today's show, given the fact that we're going to be introducing a new Westhoff to the world at some point this week. As such, super producer Daniel Westhoff heading home to Louisville. He asked we pre-record this week's show. We're recording this here on Monday night. What does that mean? It means A, unfortunately, we're not going to get to interact with all of you watching on YouTube in the chat today. But B, it means we're not going to have watched Tuesday and Wednesday's exciting college tennis matches by the time all of you are hearing this. Of course, we'll talk about them a bit on today's show, do some projecting. But again, we are recording this here on Monday night. As such, you all may be aware of some results that we are not while recording today's show. That said, it was another fantastic weekend of college tennis. And this was our first normal weekend. It felt like now we're getting into the groove of this 2022 regular season. National indoors officially in the books. Yes, we still had some invitationals. And of course, we're going to talk about the Blue-Gray event, in particular, Middle Tennessee State. Are they a top 20? Top 16 team? That's a question we all have on our minds now. After they go and win the Blue-Gray title, we want to talk about their run, what we expect from them moving forward. And then, of course, some of the other results, other things we learned from that Blue-Gray event. Of course, we also got to talk about what's happening on the West Coast. It is chaos right now in West Coast men's college tennis. Who's the best of the West? That's a question we are going to explore as well. There were so many pertinent results with Ncaa Implications for us to discuss. We'll get to those. We'll talk about the other results, offer our updated Cracked Racquets top 10 rankings, get into the week ahead, and so much more. Of course, if we're going to do all of that, you better have some friends to help you along. And of course, I always do when we're talking college tennis on this show in particular. I got the two other members of our Cracked Racquets college tennis holy trinity. I want to introduce them now. Let's start where we always start. You know him as a former four-star recruit on tennisrecruiting.net, your co-favorite writer on our website, crackrackets.com, and a guy who's using his flu game right now to help us in this podcast. Of course, you know him best as Matt the Crack Stachowiak. Matty, hey, great shot. Welcome back to the show. Hope you're feeling all right tonight. Always good to see you. How are you doing?
Yeah, doing all right, man. I don't know if I'd go as far as the flu game, but I did have a pretty large cheeseburger for lunch, and I can say that I'm not feeling the best right now. I'm trying to struggle through it, but we'll make it, man. Happy to be here with you guys, of course, talking some college tennis, and we got a lot to get into.
Chris is smiling because we've now all reached the age where a cheeseburger at lunch just isn't going to agree with us for the rest of the time. Chris is like, I've been that way for 2 decades. And of course, speaking of Chris,
I think more than likely it was nothing wrong with the burger. I think it was probably undercooked. I don't think I eat burgers all the time and have no issues. So I don't think it's just a burger.
I think you finally have aged out. I think we're finally done with your college tennis tenure. This is a sign of that. Me as well. But of course, joining us also on the show today, I mean, we could do 5 more minutes on the burger, or we could bring in today's guest, a man who's chock full of burgers. If you ever see him in person, of course, you know him best as a forefather of the college tennis ranks formula predictions, never far from the listed UTR, one of the many dames to root for the Liberty Flames, the snitch, the professor. He quotes Henry Ford. He refuses to watch paint dry. It's our friend, Chris Halioris. Chris, hey, great shot. Welcome back to the show. I feel like now is the time of year where you thrive more than anyone else. There's rankings, chaos. How does this matchup impact me? I imagine you're doing well, my friend.
I'm doing great. I'm still trying to figure out which of the two topics would have been more juicy or contain more fat. But yeah.
I would say it's an 80-20 lean here.
We're getting going, and it's like once we get past indoors, you get 1 or 2 weekends of regular tennis, if you will. And then all of a sudden the conference, especially for the bigger conferences, like the SEC starts next weekend, maybe a little more time on the on the Big 12, but the conferences get rolling right away. So we get a little bit of, quote unquote regular weekend tennis after indoors, and then we get into it. But yeah, getting already right, all the coaches coming out of the woodworks with ranking questions and things they want to see. So yeah, it's always the fun time of the year.
Well, we will try to answer as many of those ranking questions as we can here on today's show. I do wonder, since we're not recording live, will super producer Daniel Westhoff cut a joke that involves 80-20% ground beef from this podcast? Hopefully he doesn't cut it. Hopefully all of you listeners get to enjoy some meat-related humor to start today's show. But yes, as you mentioned, there are a lot of results for us to discuss. We're into the meat and potatoes portion of the schedule. Of course, because we are pre-recording today's show, we don't have a coaching interview for you on it, but rest assured, we do have a coach of the week that we spoke with. It is Middle Tennessee State head coach Jimmy B, who's going to be joining me on the Cracked Interviews podcast later this week, whether he knows it yet or not, to discuss the hot start to his team season. But of course, in lieu of discussing him, let's discuss his team here to start today's show. Middle Tennessee State, winners of the Blue Gray Classic. They do it in impressive fashion as well. It wasn't a cupcake draw, right, for this team. They start off with Tulane, a team that has earned some top 40 wins already this season. 4-1, Middle Tennessee advances. Then they get the big win, 4-0 over Arizona. That's obviously the one that stands out here on the weekend. They follow that up with a 4-1 win over Princeton to ultimately clinch themselves the title. Start with you, Maddie. How good is this Middle Tennessee team?
Well, they're a very good team, and it's not that shocking, guys. I mean, in years past, Middle Tennessee is always a team that snuck up on some of the bigger Power 5 schools, right? I know they're a mid-major, but it's not like this is the first time that they've beaten someone the caliber of a Princeton or a Tulane or in Arizona. They've done this in years past. So I wasn't totally shocked by it, but I was still very impressed. I mean, these are 3 really, really good wins. And for me, I think it's fair to say that, based on what they've done this season so far, I probably consider them somewhere around a top 20 team, Gruskin. I don't want to go top 16, that type. I don't want to get there just yet. We need to let the rest of the season play out, but I think it's very fair based on their resume at this point, that they could be they should be a top 20 team right now. And I think they're very deserving of that. So fantastic performances all the way around throughout the weekend. And, they deserve it. I mean, this is a team, Jimmy, you mentioned, who you're going to have on the Cracked Interviews podcast. I mean, he always sets up his schedule really smart with a lot of good teams in there. I like what they do. I like their program. So to see them win the Blue Gray like this, I think it's well-deserved, and I'm happy they did it.
Yeah. And I mean, again, this team now 14-3 overall. And have they played the most rigorous schedule to date? No, they haven't. Those 3 losses, Mississippi State, they also lost a match 5-2, I believe, earlier in the season. I'm blanking here. Oh, Notre Dame. At Notre Dame, they also lose a match 4-2 to Georgia Tech. I mean, but you look at some of the teams they've started to beat now. 6-1 over Virginia Tech. That's a quality win. 4-2 over Auburn. That's a very good win. And now this weekend to beat Tulane, Arizona, Princeton back to back the way they did. I don't think Middle Tennessee making the tournament was ever in doubt, but now you feel pretty confident that not only are they going to make the tournament, they've put themselves in somewhat of a position to be a top 16 seed. Now it gets a little bit harder for them after that because we get into conference play and there's just not a lot of ranked wins left on the table. But this could be a team that's 21-3, 22-3-ish. Like I could see them running the table the rest of the way, Chris, because you look at the recipe for this team. Again, it's how consistent the success they're having has been. They're 12-1 at the 2 doubles position. They've had 5 different teams fill in there. 13-1 at the number 3 doubles position, 11-1 at 2 singles, 11-1 at 6 singles. You know what that sounds like to me, Chris? That sounds like a 3-point team. And of course, again, you have to adjust for level of competition. But this Middle Tennessee team that has experience up top, 2 top 100 players at the 1 and 2 singles position, and then the depth is clearly having success, whether it be at 6, whether it be at 2 and 3 doubles. there's a recipe here. Like, this team is always cooking. And again, will they make the Sweet 16? Probably not, but they're absolutely in the hunt. You don't want to see Middle Tennessee as if Middle Tennessee is a 3 seed in your region, that is a brutal region.
Oh, for sure. I mean, that would mean they'd have to be outside, well, not really. You would say theoretically outside the top 32, but because of the way they schedule now based on geography, no, you're right. They could be a 23 and still be the 3 seed in a region. But I mean, look, they did this last year. They beat a bunch of Power 5 teams and started doing this. And like Maddie said, Jimmy does a really good job with the scheduling. He's taking on a bunch of Power 5 schools, but he's not taking on, a schedule stacked with the Virginias and the North Carolinas and the Floridas. He's going after those teams that are about on par with where he wants his program to be, and to beat them and gain confidence, and then probably slowly move up the ladder. So they've done that. But I'll tell you what was most impressive for me this weekend, and I've seen a fair amount of them over the past couple of years, and Mississippi State's played them. I've seen both of those matches. They've got a really good, solid, deep roster, but when they play the top teams, where they end up struggling usually is at the top of the lineup, because when you start to play top Power 5 conference schools, it gets harder at the top of the lineup at 1 and 2. They went through those 3 matches this weekend between Tulane and Arizona and Princeton, and in the top 4 singles, they lost 1 match. And that was the last day to Princeton. That was 1 match in the top 4. It wasn't like they were having to split the top 2 and then carry it out down low. They lost 1 match in 3 days in the top 4 singles. I mean, that is a difference maker. If they can get that out of their top 4, then yes, they're going to compete. And that would have been a difference. That was a tight match they played with Mississippi State. They lost at 1 and 2. You swing those, even swing one of them, and you're in a 4-3 match, and who knows what happens. It could go either way once it's tied up 3-all. But that's a big difference for them. If they get that kind of production out of Stein, Slump, and Francisco Rocha, then they're going to be a very difficult team to deal with.
You look at how they played Arizona, a team we had top 10 coming into the season. We're going to get to Arizona, I promise, in a little bit. But they dropped 1 set in singles, not like 1 match. They dropped 1 set in singles, and that was at the number 6 spot, where Pavel Modal has been excellent for them, and that's a spot they've relied on. But now Basic was just a little bit better on that day. You talk about it for Slump, 2 and 2 over Jonas Everts. Roka's up 7-5, 2-1 on Gustav Strom. That's about all you can ask for from your top 2. And then, for Roka the next day, gets a straight set win over Barkai Princeton. And, again, for them to get the wins at 3 and 4, they've been good at 3, but finding out who goes where in that middle of the lineup, to your point, Chris, they have players. They're trying to find the right combination. Again, Maddie, when you look at the results for them here at the Blue-Gray, win over Tulane, win over Arizona, win over Princeton, are you surprised? Again, your final thoughts on them ultimately getting in the winner's circle.
I mean, a little surprised. I mean, at the way they dismantled Arizona like that. I mean, because Arizona played a regular lineup. Like, they didn't hold back. Look at their lineup. They played 6 guys that we would expect Arizona to play against the top teams in the country, and they just took them out. So, yeah, a little surprised, but not totally shocked, because like I said earlier, this Middle Tennessee State team has done things like this before in the past. They're always a team that you have to keep your eye on when they match up with some of these Power 5 teams, or even, these better mid-majors like a Tulane or a Princeton, Ivy League schools that we know are very good. Middle Tennessee can absolutely compete. I mean, I remember several years ago, Duke, when Nick, my brother, was back playing for Duke, they played Middle Tennessee State, and I think he played Slump, there. And I was impressed. I was like, this team has some fight, and I liked what I saw. So, I am a little bit surprised, Gruskin, that they rolled through in the fashion that they did, a little bit, but I'm not shocked. Yeah. I'm not.
No, I think that's a fair assessment. And when you look at some of the other results, I think the most shocking thing isn't Middle Tennessee winning. Them beating Arizona 4-0 is definitely a surprise.
Right.
But it might be VCU going 2-1, Chris. You look for VCU. They get a 4-3 win over Auburn on day one. Auburn goes on to beat Nebraska 4-0, Tulane 4-0. I continue to be a little higher on Auburn, certainly this year compared to last season. I think that's a solid team that's just going to be scrappy against everyone come the SEC because they are pretty good everywhere. But for VCU, 4-3 over Auburn, 4-2 over Arizona, makes their 4-1 loss against Princeton just look shocking given the other two results on the weekend. What does VCU get with this sort of result, Chris, and your thoughts on it?
Well, I mean, this is a team that started out really slow. I don't know where exactly they finished last year, but they were, I think, just inside the top 50. They were one of those, tournament line type teams, a very good team. The Bertemon brothers up top, generally 1 and 2, although I think they've been splitting them at maybe at 1 and 3 lately, but a slow start, frankly, for them. They probably not the start they wanted to the year, but now they've started to play. And yeah, those were a couple really good wins for them over Auburn. I was actually chatting with somebody before that tournament about the potential draws that was going to be one of the top 4 and said, and they told me they were seeding it, but they were waiting for the rankings to come out at that point because they were seeding the tournament based off of the ITA ranking. So they were waiting for them to come out. And I looked at that and said, boy, I don't think I want to be the 2 because the 2 is going to draw VCU at 7. And that is a rough 7 seed to draw in your first match. And it ended up being Auburn that drew them. And VCU won the match. But yeah, and they play a fair number of good matches. They're going to have their chances. And that's a very good team. But frankly, yeah, Arizona on the weekend was just, that's the head scratcher from the blue-gray to me. Middle Tennessee, I'm with Maddie. Am I totally shocked they beat them? No. Would I have called for what I would have considered the upset? Probably not. And they just thumped them. And then they go on and lose again to VCU. So not a great weekend for Arizona.
Yeah, and again, I want to get to them more in a second, just to put a final bow on this VCU team. They went 17-5 last year, and those 5 losses: Arizona, Wake Forest, 4-3 versus Virginia Tech, 5-2 at Tulane. Then a really fun 4-1 match, if you guys remember, in the first round of the NCAA tournament last year against Ohio State. And yeah, again, this team right now is 8-6, and they're all good losses, right? 5-2 at Columbia, I don't think it's a bad loss. 4-2 at Duke, I don't think is a bad loss. At Georgia, at Kentucky. That's it. The one they'd like back probably is the at Arkansas, where they lost 4-3. But they get 2 much needed wins here this weekend, that Arizona one in particular. Now you look at the board, they've still got some pieces. USF, Cornell, Charlotte's pretty solid as well. They've got Chris's Liberty Flames coming up later in April, but not a ton of tennis left for VCU. And so to go 2-1 this weekend, that's a big result. Again, already talked about Auburn, Nebraska 0-3 on the weekend. I actually thought they played pretty well. Tulane, good win over Alabama. If you're Alabama, if you didn't get that win over Nebraska, it was going to be a brutal ride from Montgomery back to campus in Tuscaloosa. Any final thoughts, Maddie, on this blue-gray? Again, Alabama, I don't know. Auburn, I guess what this tells me is Auburn better than Bama?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. They are this year for sure. Bama's bad. I hate to say it. And
it's just such a new group.
Yeah, it's a totally different group. You pull up that roster and you hardly recognize anybody. It is a very different Alabama team. And, for Nebraska, I don't really expect anything out of them either in the Big Ten. They're going to be bottom feeders. Auburn, no, I agree with you, though, Gruskin. I am higher on Auburn this year than I would be in most normal years. I think they do have a better squad. So I will be interested to kind of follow Auburn a little bit within, the SEC conference. I'm not expecting them to sneak up and beat a Florida or a Tennessee or even a Kentucky or, some of those top tier SEC teams. But once you get past those top 3-4, schools, okay, then let's see what they can do against an Ole Miss and a Texas A&M and a Mississippi State and, teams of that caliber. I will be very interested to see Auburn this year.
I couldn't agree more. With all that said, Chris, any final blue-gray takes?
Yeah, I would say I wouldn't sell. A really rough start for Alabama. I wouldn't sell them too short. Yeah, I wouldn't sell them too short yet. They haven't lost to anybody outside the top 50. They just haven't beaten anybody. And they are, and like Maddie said, it's a lot. And you look at that roster and you go, Planicek, Samafala. Well, who are these guys? You don't recognize all the names. They've got some talented guys. They're young, they're inexperienced. Juan Martin coming over, but it's a team that I think is going to be, as the year goes on, and because it's the SEC, they're going to jump up and surprise somebody. Who knows who it's going to be? But one weekend you're going to hear what Alabama beat who, and it's going to happen. I don't be shocked. It's again, I don't, we're not counting on them to be a top 30 type team probably right now. They're not getting quality wins over anybody, but they've got some talent and they'll come around at some point. But yeah, it's still, I like what we see from Auburn. It's a good turn to see them playing some good tennis.
Yeah, and we know what we're going to get from the SEC. And the good news is we're going to get to watch all the SEC action here on our Cracked Racquets, or at least broadcast it all here at Cracked Racquets. You can watch it all on the team websites. But every Friday, starting this Friday, we'll have our SEC Red Zone rocking and rolling. Hopefully, all of you college tennis fans will tune in to those broadcasts. It's going to be really, really fun to get to see all of these teams compete not just for an SEC championship, but of course 4 spots in the NCAA tournament. With that said, SEC is not the focus. I want to go out west now and talk about who is the best of the West, because when we look at what's happening out west, I have no feel for any of these teams. And I was talking to our West Coast correspondent, John Parsons, last night on the phone and just kind of going through this segment, mocking my head because I don't like to talk to you guys about it beforehand because I like these conversations to be organic. And, again, with all due respect, don't get mad at me, Coach Shackley. Don't get mad at me, Coach Shields. Don't get mad, Coach Goldstein, Coach Macy. Are any of these teams great? I'm really not sure this year. Do we have a top 10 team out west? When you look at Arizona, who certainly with all the noise they made last year, making that Sweet 16, bringing everyone back and bringing essentially everyone back, shout out Alejandro Reguant, and, bringing Colton Smith, though, one of the top freshmen in the nation, to replace him. You just felt like this team had all of the pieces. And when you look on paper, Arizona 12-4 overall. On paper, doesn't sound too bad. They have banked a 4-3 win over Texas, which they still have in the queue. They have earned a really nice 5-2 win over San Diego as well. Got the 4-1 win over Alabama. But you look at these losses: 4-0 to Middle Tennessee, 4-2 to VCU, 4-1 to A&M, 5-2 at Pepperdine, which is a really tough place to play, as the USC Trojans learned, and we'll get there. But Maddie, are we buying? Are we selling? Are we holding? What are we doing with Arizona?
Oh, with Arizona, look, after the performance this past weekend, I think you have to sell a little bit. I definitely don't want to buy. Maybe hold. I don't know. I agree with everything you said. This was a team that we thought was going to be a top 10 caliber squad. You bring in Colton Smith, who is one of the best freshmen in the country, and you bring back all your guys. Gustav Strom, Zieverts. They've got the whole squad there. I just don't really know what's been going on this year with them, to be fair. I don't know. It's just too much up and down. They'll beat a Texas and then they lose, like they did to Middle Tennessee and just get swept off the court. It's very bizarre. I don't know what to make of them. I was going into the season, I was excited about Arizona because I really like Coach Shields and his energy and the way that he gets his players to compete. I thought that was really going to carry over from last season. They had a great year last year. But yeah, I don't know, man. Right now, they're nowhere close to a top 10 team for me. Arizona specifically, nowhere close to the top 10.
Well, it's a really weird scenario because you look at the numbers again, 12-4, and they've been able to beat up on some teams to pad those stats. But other than they're 8-7 at the number 1 singles spot, whichever one of Zieverts or Strom plays at the top spot has been struggling. And it's been mostly Zieverts, who's 4-6, but the flip side, they're 13-1 at the 2 singles position. So again, you're literally splitting the top 2. I think you would take that as a victory. And you look for them beyond that, though. 11-3 at 3, 11-3 at 4, 11-4 at 5, 10-2 at 6. And yet in the biggest matches, A&M on the road, and, again, whatever, VCU Blue-Gray third match in 2 days, it is what it is. But against Middle Tennessee, you win one set and you're up a set and 4-1 at 6, but that's it. Chris, again, were we too high on? I would argue, Maddie, now might actually be the time to buy them because the stock's probably as low as it's going to be if they go on a swing. And so, fair. Again, from that aspect. But Chris, where are you with Arizona?
Yeah, you stole my take, Gruskin. I was going to say, by the spirit of what you mean, I think, yeah, absolutely, you're selling Arizona. Nothing looks good. Nothing's going right. They seem to have kind of lost their way. But if you're going to turn it into a true, stock market-ish type game, projecting them down at 28 this week, I'm buying that. They're not going a lot. I mean, it would be disastrous for them to finish the year ranked lower than that, given the fact that they're going to have their chances against other Pac-12 schools and that they've got talent. So, I mean, they should come back from here. They ought to rise, but it's definitely not a good feeling watching the results this weekend.
Here's why you hold. They've got Oklahoma and Baylor coming to town over the next 2 weeks. You get one of those, you feel a little bit better. Yeah, they're at UCLA, at USC. You feel like they have to split those. They should split those if we're being honest. Stanford comes to town, though. They get that match at home. We know how dangerous these Wildcats are at home. Cal, home match for them as well. That's big. They're going to have opportunities to earn those ranked wins, but now there is more pressure on them going into this Pac-12 regular season. On the flip side, have Stanford and USC been that good, though, to where even with this slow start for Arizona, are you afraid of that USC match? Are you afraid of the Stanford match? Let's start with the Trojans, and we'll get to the Pepperdine Waves, who obviously have had a roller coaster. I don't know what Coach Shackley wants to do to us. We'll get to them last, but let's stick Pac-12 here. When you look at USC, 8-3 overall, they go to the national indoors. Yeah, they lose 4-0 to Kentucky in match one, but they bounce back. 4-1 over Ole Miss, 4-1 over Stanford. I mean, they just got, it was an old, beatdown is not what it was, but they got beat straight up. It wasn't one of those it was 7 third set matches, even though there's only 6 single spots and everything was funky. No, Pepperdine was just better than them from top to bottom of the lineup. Their experience showed, or maybe the youth of USC showed at times. I mean, where are you with the Trojans, Maddie? I know we talked about this a bit last week, and it was funny because coming out of the indoors, you're like, well, they just beat Stanford. The freshmen are getting better. Now they go on the road here at Pepperdine. It's just this team is young. That's all I can say is this team is young.
They are. And guys, we didn't have USC in our preseason top 10 for a reason, because we thought they were going to be young. We knew that this was going to be a different Trojans team. I mean, for me, I have them in my personal rankings, I believe, number 10 this week. I believe. I could be wrong on that. Geez, I can't believe I have to ask Chris about my own rankings. But I believe I have them at number 10, but just barely. Okay, so I have USC at 10, but that is just barely, they are barely hanging on to that top 10 spot. And, I truly don't know, guys, if they are a top 10 team this year. I could probably pick out a couple other teams that I think, will jump up there and sneak into the top 10 over USC. I like some of the pieces that they have. Obviously, Steph at the top and, Bradley Fry's a veteran. And, I just don't know. The young guys, I think they're okay, but watching them at indoors, I wasn't as impressed as I wanted to be. I was really excited to watch USC at indoors, and I didn't love it. I know they beat Stanford, and I know they bounced back and won another match there, but I'm not loving it, guys. It's a wide open Pac-12 again. We just talked about Arizona. Should they fear USC? No, I don't think they should. I think Arizona should walk into that matchup and say, hey, we have as good of a chance as anybody to beat USC. But I think the Trojans should feel the exact same way. When they match up against Stanford and with Arizona, they should feel like, hey, we've got just as good of a shot as any of these other teams. The Pac-12 conference as a whole is down this year. I don't know who's going to win it now at this point. I mean, I picked Stanford preseason based on their roster and just overall talent, but we know what's kind of happened with them. So yeah, I don't know. I have USC at number 10, Gruskin, but I do not love that. And over the coming weeks here, they may be out of my top 10. We'll see how it goes.
I think that's fair. Chris?
Yeah, I mean, they've all beaten each other up. Yeah. I still have USC and tops in that group. And I've got, Maddie mentioned he's got USC at 10. I've got USC at 9, and I've got Stanford at 10. I mean, they're really close, but to me, the difference maker is that, I feel like they're on different trajectories where, Stanford's got, potentially no Boyer, doesn't seem like, I don't know, the whole aura around there doesn't seem great. The USC guys, I don't think there's no lack of anything there in terms of they're fighting, they're trying, they're just young and inexperienced, and they're going to get better as the season goes on. I think they're playing more as a team. They're just having their struggles, and they're all going to take their turns beating each other. But I still like them as the best team out west. But they've all shown vulnerabilities, and to Maddie's point, I don't think any of them are afraid of the other. Pepperdine's going to feel like they can beat any of them. USC feels like they can beat anybody. Stanford feels like they can beat anybody. Arizona feels like they can beat anybody. I mean, yeah. None of them are afraid of the other teams. And it's just, who wins on that given day. But I still like USC kind of right now, at least at the top of that pack. I think they will continue to gel and get better as a team as the year goes on.
Yeah, again, they're young. They're a year away. Like, there's not a doubt. It feels like all of these teams out west are at least a year away, except for maybe Pepperdine, who might be the best of the group right now. But yeah, to your point, it's open season, and I don't have USC in my top 10 right now. And, again, I was talking about this with Jay, and I don't want to get in trouble. And I apologize, coaches, but I'm saying this truthfully. This is a 2018 Gruskin take that I would have just said so confidently, but now these coaches, these teams, and you're just afraid someone's going to jump on you. Outside of TCU, and I would say a hair of Tennessee and Ohio State when they're in Columbus, no one's playing that well right now. And we'll get into Baylor in a little bit, and God, am I going to get a mean text from Michael Woodson after some of the takes that are probably going to come. But I just don't think anyone's that good right now. It is. This February has looked so much like a February where it's just like all these young teams are trying to fit in new pieces. And yeah, you have some teams that are, of course, better prepared to have success right away. Even South Carolina, who had a great indoors, they lost to North Carolina the weekend before. You throw those results in. Outside of TCU, who did play, in my opinion, as pretty close to their ceiling at the national indoors. I still think they can get better, but they were the team that most looked like, okay, this could be what the best version of TCU looks like. I don't think anyone else is there right now. And I think that applies to all of these teams out west. USC 8-3, and, Stanford, who you look this overall 9-2, and, they get a 6-1 win over St. Mary's this weekend. But I don't feel particularly great about Stanford. And now you move on to Pepperdine, who, what do we do with their results? 5-4 overall. You look at what they're able to do, right? They get a 5-2 win over Arizona right after Arizona had beaten Texas. Well, then, they lose 4-3 to Harvard in the kickoff weekend. They lose 4-3 at Tulsa. They then beat USC 4-2 this weekend. They lose 4-3 at Oregon, which is always a tough place to play. And by the way, again, you're looking at the results. They lost 4-3 to Harvard, 4-3 to Tulsa, 4-3 at Oregon, 5-2 at Stanford. All of their losses have been close. This team is too talented, too deep. They're going to be in the fight. One or two of their guys are going to play well, and if they do, they'll win. Is Pepperdine the best team out west right now, Maddie? They're not the best team.
I don't think they're the best team out west, but the way that I look at it is for Pepperdine, I am the least disappointed in Pepperdine.
Okay,
preseason, sure. You look at Arizona, you look at Stanford, and you look at USC, the Pac-12 schools, and you go, okay, we got a couple top 10 teams here, Stanford, Arizona, USC is not far behind. We like them up there. I've been thoroughly disappointed really with all three of those squads. Now for Pepperdine, I can't say that I'm that disappointed with Pepperdine, the Waves. I mean, I think that they have done, I know they've got some losses in there that you just mentioned, some close, tight losses, but overall, I think this season has gone a little bit more according to plan for the Waves than it probably has for the 3 Pac-12 schools. So I don't think that they're the best team out West. And guys, I still truly believe that Stanford, if let's say all 4 of these teams are playing their best, right? In their lineups, every player in the lineup is playing their best tennis. I still feel like Stanford is the best team. And that was my preseason pick to win the Pac-12. Even without Boyer, I still feel like Stanford playing at their absolute highest level is the best in the West. Now, will they get there? I don't know. That's not what I'm saying. I just believe on paper, Stanford is still the best team. And if they play their best, they will be the best. Right now, I agree with Chris. I have to give the nod to USC at this moment. But look, Pepperdine's right there. They're right there in the mix. Arizona's up there. All 4 of these teams, it's pretty much, hey, let's roll the balls out. Let's play some tennis and see who wins. It could be any one of us on any given day. That's where we are right now with these West schools. I mean, it makes it kind of interesting, right? Because we don't know who's going to win the Pac-12. We honestly don't know who's going to win. I mean, it could be anybody. So I think that makes it kind of fun, for us. It's not fun for them, obviously. But no, for me, Pepperdine, I would say that I am more impressed or less unimpressed with Pepperdine than any 4 of the, any of the schools. That's how I look at it. All
I'm saying is my over 2.5 Washington Pac-12 wins is appreciating very well right now, Chris. So expect to pay up with that steak dinner. Again, I think if we were talking to Shaq before the season, you say, Arizona, Stanford before the year, kickoff weekend and USC, you're going to get 2 wins out of those 5 matches. He would have said that's fine. Like, that's the bare minimum. They got their 2 wins. At the same time, again, the puzzling 4-3 loss at Tulsa, puzzling 4-3 loss at Oregon. Now, they've still got some doozies on the schedule. Harvard's coming to town. Texas is coming to town. Obviously, they've got the conference schedule as well. Is top 16 at all in the card still for this team, Chris, particularly with that Texas win, the Arizona win being where they're at, or is at this point a little bit too tough?
I mean, they would in all likelihood have to run the table, but it's not because they've got Texas and because they've got Harvard. Those will be, Texas probably in a top 10 by the end of the season type win. Harvard, a top 15 or 20 type win come the end of the season. There's not much else from a points perspective, but if you throw those in there with what they've got now and they're projected up to, I think it's 19 this week. It's close. I mean, it might be, to your point, it might not be enough as we start expanding the number of wins that count. Even if they ran the table, it might be too little, too late. But they're going to be a solid 2 seed somewhere. And I can't. The reason I can't make these guys what I would say the best, I feel like the epitome of that team is Pietro Felon. He is the roller. Watching him is a roller coaster unto itself. You watch him win a first set 6-love, and then he goes 2-1 the next 2 and gets beat. And it's not just that match. It's which Felon do you get? You watch him when he's playing well, he looks unbeatable. I mean, he looks outstanding. And then when he disappears, you don't know where he went. And I think they've got to get some consistency there. And I think if they can get that and just a little more stability, we know they've got the talent. They've got a great team, and they've made the swap there. Play with Timmy Zeitvogel up at 2 now, Felon down to 3. But yeah, it's a talented team. But I think highly, highly unlikely. Obviously, they would have to run the table, and even at that, as we start moving this week from 5 up to 9 wins that count by the time you get to NCAAs, they don't have enough meat on the schedule left to probably pull in a top 16, even if they managed to beat Harvard and Texas.
Yeah, no, this is a very good team. I mean, they have the depth, they have the answers. The question is, again, can they put all of the pieces together in time? Of these 4 teams out west, Arizona, Pepperdine, Stanford, USC, if you say the over is 2.5 top 16 seeds come the NCAA tournament, this is our last thought here. What do you guys take? Over, under, Maddie? 2.5 is a good number, I feel like, because 1.5 you take the over for sure. Stanford, USC, you feel pretty confident about, but do 2.5.
Yeah, it's tough. It's real. I mean, God, man, I will say over. Arizona is going to have to. God, I want to say over. I want to say 3. I want to say 3 of them get in there, but I don't know, man. I'm not totally convinced of it.
Yeah,
I'm
Chris?
not.
I go under.
Yeah, see, that's what I was thinking, but I mean, if that really is the case, then that's kind of sad.
It is sad. No, you could just say it out loud, because these 4 teams you felt like, I mean, Arizona for sure, you just felt like top 16.
Yeah, I mean that's the swing, right? I mean,
right.
We're saying it's unlikely for Pepperdine just because of what's left on the schedule. Like, even if they ran the table, probably come up short by only adding 2 more quality wins. So it's not because of the team, but more the schedule. They get tough. That means Arizona has to. If we all go, okay, given at 16, USC and Stanford are in, right, Arizona becomes the swing, and they're going to be like 28 this week, and they've got some work to do. They've got the opportunity, but and they may, because not only are they going to get their cracks at USC and Stanford in the regular season, you're going to have the Pac-12 tournament. They do have that match with Oklahoma. That could be a big match with Oklahoma to get points outside the Pac-12, and Baylor as well. Although, I mean, heck, that maybe that's the surprise for them. I certainly don't expect to see them beat them, not the way they've been playing. But, if they were to jump up at home and win that match, okay, they're in the top 16. I mean,
right. I just feel like there is a world, guys, where Arizona could get hot towards the end of the season like they did last year.
1,000%.
I could see that happening. Like, if Clancy gets those guys juiced up, and they like, I want that to happen. I'm hoping that happens. I want to see it happen, because I think the Arizona team, when they're clicking, they're so much fun to watch, just the energy. And I like watching them play. I'm hoping they can get it done. But like you said, Chris, I don't know, man. I mean, we may have to take the under on that, but I hate to do it.
Arizona will either be going to or hosting whichever SEC team finishes 5th, maybe 6th in the conference. And that's going to be one of your favorite regionals, hopefully 5th. I mean, I don't know. I could see like an Arizona, Georgia round of 32. That'll just be so spicy.
You
outdoors
said going to or hosting.
Yeah.
One of the, I'm just
thinking geographically, it's impossible.
Well, that's true. Well, yeah, they're not gonna let that happen geographically unless somehow it was.
You had to burst my bubble right away.
Well, no, what I was going to say is the 5th place SEC team is going to be top 16. So
yeah, that's crazy. Or like an Ole Miss. I meant 6th place. I knew it as soon as I said it. I was just trying to get spicy. Anyways, with all of that said, that's the best of the West. Have some other significant results with NCAA implications. And what I want to do here is introduce a new segment that I think we're going to do throughout the course of the season. This is good. I gave Westhoff plenty of prep to thought about it as I was sitting here getting ready to talk about it. We're going to play good win, bad loss. So I'm going to go through a list of results we saw on the day. We're going to rapid fire through to try and keep these takes condensed. And we're going to say, was it a good win for the team that earned the victory? Was it a bad loss? So often, sometimes things are in between, and every victory is a good victory. Let's be clear, even if your team isn't playing their best tennis. But we're going to rapid fire through these. And again, I want to go to all of you. Try and keep your answers brief if we can. Maddie, then Chris. Yep. Oklahoma beats A&M 7-0. Good win, bad loss.
Bad loss, I think. I mean, that's just A&M. What are we doing, guys? What are we doing? I mean, Oklahoma is a very good team. It's not the worst loss, but I mean, I don't really look at that too much from Oklahoma's. I'm looking at the Aggies going, guys, bad loss. That's how I look at it.
Especially after the national indoors. I don't think that's unfair. Chris?
Yeah, I'm sure you're going to ask about both, and I'll split my answers. On
SMU defeats A&M 4-3 is the other match.
I'll split. Yeah, I'll say the Oklahoma is bad loss because Oklahoma is good, and I kind of half expected them to be.
They got smoked though.
Yeah, exactly. We talked about it being tight, and they just got smoked. So there I say that's just bad loss. SMU. I mean that's a good win. I mean, I, at this point. You're starting to think, wow, and ironically by a former Aggie at 4 singles that actually clinched the match for SMU. But yeah, it's rough weekend for A&M for sure.
Yeah. All right. On the flip side, next results: Texas Tech 4-1 over Tulsa, 4-0 over Denver. I mean, those are just good wins, and this is more a Chris-centric thing. Are they NCAA quality wins, Chris?
Yeah. I mean, they're for sure because they're both going to be. I mean, those teams, regardless of whether they end up in or not, they will be right on that bubble line. Denver's going to be in that area. Tulsa's going to be in that area. Getting wins over those teams is a difference maker for Tech getting into the tournament. So those are huge wins for them.
Yeah, I agree with you. Maddie, anything to add?
Nope, I'm with you guys on that one.
Yeah, I think Tech's pretty solid. Like, again, they're going to be sixth in the Oklahoma State versus them is going to be interesting, but like that could be an Ncaa implication sort of match because again, you got 6 teams and 3 of them are top 10 in the Big 12. So yeah, Tech rack up those wins. And by the way, good bounce back from Tulsa, 4-2 over Denver. Memphis, 4-2 over Arizona State. Good win, bad loss, Maddie. Or expected win. Maybe I need a new category.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to have to say bad loss. I'm not going to say good win. I'm going to have to say bad loss for the Sun Devils. I mean, I hate it for my guy, Matt Hill. I mean, I just hate it. But this Arizona State team is not – they just don't have it, guys. They just don't have it. Let's just call it like it is. This year, it's going to be very rough for them, I think, all the way throughout. Hate to see it because I love Matt Hill. I always want him to do well, but he just doesn't have the horses. He doesn't have the squad this year. It's a bad loss.
Chris?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it's not a good – the way Arizona State's playing, it's not good enough to call it a good win. It's just –
right.
It's a bad loss. Now, to what Maddie's saying, Arizona State's going to, if I'm with Maddie, I agree. I don't think they have the horses, and I think it's a long year. But they're in a place where they get plenty of chances, and it doesn't take, to hit that bubble spot, it doesn't take a ton of big wins. You want to get top 16, it takes a lot of good wins. You want to make 44-ish to make the tournament, you get a couple of good wins in the Pac-12 and you're there. So, they just got to find, those couple matches where they show up and have something, but it doesn't look good out there.
But even if they make the tournament, guys, they're not a threat. They're not a threat once they get in. So, regardless of if they barely make it in or if they just miss out, they're not a threat either way, I don't think.
Get that NCAA tournament bonus. That's all coaches are looking for at that point. All right, as we keep going, UCF, 4-1 over Arkansas. Desperately needed win. But was it a good win or a bad loss, Maddie?
I think it's a good win for
I
UCF.
agree. It's a good win button for sure.
I think so. Against an SEC opponent, albeit 100%. Arkansas. But hey, look, I mean, we know the SEC is probably the best conference in the country. Anytime
we can take out the probably, but go on.
It depends. I mean, depth. There's a lot of factors. There's a lot of. We don't have to get it. That's for another show. Any time that you're a struggling, UCF squad like that, I mean, they haven't had a great year this year, and that's a big win for them to beat an Arkansas team. I think that's huge. Hopefully that gives them some confidence and, they can press forward here. Good win.
Yeah, totally agree. Good win. Much needed for them. And yeah, based on what they've done, you can't call it. I mean, you might want to say, for Arkansas, bad loss, but we know they've got some talent. So they just find, and some of these teams that have been beaten down that just haven't gotten the wins because they've played all good schools for the most part early on. You don't want to just discard them. UCF still has some talented kids. But that's a good win for them.
I agree. All right. Again, rapid firing through good win, bad loss. USD 4-0 over Gonzaga. Bad loss for Gonzaga? Or we now, you were talking about Pepperdine. This one was just for me. You said Pepperdine, that they really need San Diego to run the table as well. And they need that to be two undefeated teams in the WCC going into that conference. We can skip that one. That's a good win.
Yeah, because I don't think it's either. Like, it's not really, it's not a great win, but it's also not a bad loss. Like,
not a bad loss. No.
All right.
Yeah. For Gonzaga.
Again, Ncaa implications. This one's just for you, Chris. ODU 4-3 over Virginia Tech, 4-0 over Furman. What does that do for them?
Oh, that's a big weekend. Old Dominion's a good team. They're going to be one of those, excuse me, right on the bubble type teams. And those were a couple good. That the Virginia Tech match, I mean, is much needed. They're going to need some help. I mean, there are some teams that have beaten them that are going to be looking for help from Virginia Tech in the ACC conference, right? They want to see some wins out of them. But Old Dominion is, I mean, they should be a tournament team. I'll put it that way. But it may come down for them to having to win the conference and not being able to get in on rank alone. But good wins.
Fair. All right, we're moving on. Vandy 4-3 over Cornell. Good win, bad loss.
Bad loss for Cornell.
Yeah. Chris?
Bad loss for Cornell.
Bad loss.
Drake, 4-3 over Wichita State, Western Michigan, 4-3 over Wichita State. Chris, I'll go to you first on that one. It's a tough weekend for Wichita. Did you get both of those go against you, Maddie?
And I mean, they shouldn't. And Wichita State, the problem is Wichita State's better than that. And I want to say, I feel like for them, it's a bad loss. I mean, it's, I don't know.
I tend to agree.
Disappointing weekend for sure.
Miami 7-0 over Liberty, 4-1 over FAU. Good weekend for the Canes, Chris. I'm sure you were locked in. What'd you see?
Yeah, I saw a lot of the scoreboard and gave up really early. I mean,
Miami's not terrible.
Yeah, they're solid. This is the best Miami's been in a little bit.
No, yeah, it was definitely a good match for Miami. I mean, they got Dan Martin in now playing one, Yankolovsky back to playing decent and playing it too. And a couple other new guys. And then you got the Arizona State transfer and Hannestad, a new guy in Vassar and Katz. But yeah, I've actually voted Miami up in my rankings now. I've got them like right on that. I think I put them at 25. I've got them right on that 25 bubble when I'm voting.
Wow.
I like the team, and I think that's and Liberty is not a bad team. I mean, we just talked about Old Dominion. Liberty beat Old Dominion. That's a good win for Miami.
Yeah, Maddie.
Yeah, no, I think so. I'm telling you guys, Miami is going to be an interesting team in the ACC to follow this year. They are.
Yeah.
I can't look at Liberty and just say that that's a god awful loss, right? Sure. I mean, I can't. Good for Miami.
Yeah. All right. Last two for you here in good win, bad loss. FSU 4-3 over Troy. Can we just say bad win? Is that possible?
Bad win. No Poroy at 1. Telangana at 4, and maybe even one other pulled, but it still doesn't matter. You absolutely should never have let that match come down to being that close.
Yeah, staying alive. Staying alive. Win. All right, here's the most interesting one to me on the board. LSU over Tulane, 5-2 victory. Good win, bad loss. I think that might be a bad loss.
It's kind of both.
Sure, I agree. Because this might be the both-ish of the group.
The most both, because I agree, Gruskin. I do think it is kind of a bad loss.
But it's a great win for LSU. You're right.
Right.
You said it perfect. It's very both-ish.
That's kind of how I view it.
If you're Tulane, it's just, again, SEC foe, lower tier. You got to get that win.
LSU, if you're Tulane, LSU is one of those that you do want to win. You know, if you're going to play an SEC opponent, if you're playing either LSU or Vandy, okay. I mean, or maybe throw in, Bama in there. I don't know. But LSU is a team that you want to beat if you're Tulane when you're playing an SEC opponent.
Chris?
Yeah, I mean, I can't disagree with you guys, but I'd lean more. on the side of bad loss, just because this year beating Tulane's not that great. I mean, they're down a little from where they've been. And that's, I mean, you're coming off the years where they had Stewart and Moore and these guys up the top of the lineup, and they're all gone. It's a tough year. It's a quote unquote rebuilding year, if you will, for Tulane. So
fair. I think that's fair. All right. With that said, two other notable results I want to get to. Those are our Ncaa implications. And by the way, are we keeping good win, bad loss? Do we like that segment, guys? Should we keep it moving forward? All right, sure. I'll take it. Yeah, I like the rapid fire nature of it. Two more for you. And this is, again, just results I wanted to talk about a bit. Baylor, 4-3 over Oklahoma. Baylor Bears drop another doubles point. They're playing without Adrian Boitan, but, ultimately Mizuchi down 3-1 in the third, able to scrape off 5 straight games, earn the clinch at the number 5 spot. You look for the Bears. They escaped 3-set wins from Finn Bass at 4, Mizuchi at 5. 3-set wins, straight set wins at the 1 and 2 spots from Soto and Law. Bears are 14-1 overall in the year. It's a new group. Yeah, you get the continuity at top, but you're trying to find 3 new pieces at the bottom. I'm just going to say it. And Maddie, you're in the Baylor hat, so you can be the judge here. I just don't think they're that good right now. Now, I'm not saying they don't have all the talent in the world to be there come May. And I still think my projection for them going into May has not wavered in the slightest. Come May, they will be competing, if not winning, an NCAA title. That said, this team would not be doing that. I just don't think they're playing that well in doubles. I don't think, Milutinovic is still finding his sea legs at the 4 spot. And, Sven's played fine. I think Mati's actually playing pretty well right now. Of all the guys, he's the one probably closest to playing his best. Nice bounce back from Mizuchi at 5. But I just don't think the Bears are playing that well right now. And it might actually be a coup that they're 14-1 at this point and haven't taken a bad loss.
That's exactly what I was going to say, Gruskin. I mean, you can look at it multiple different ways, and I have to look at it as a positive because you're exactly right. They're not playing anywhere close to what they're capable of. And let's just put this out there right now, guys. This Baylor team is not last year's Baylor team. Okay, let's just say
I literally talked about this with Jay yesterday. Sorry to cut you off. All I've learned this past 2 months is how fucking good. Sorry, Westhoff, it slipped out. How freaking good Furman and really Spencer. No disrespect to Nick and Charlie, but it was like Spencer was the lock of locks at 1. And the more you get in this game, you realize how rare those are, and you're just like, wow, Spencer really was that good from the drop.
At 6, not 1.
Yeah, no, but that's what I'm saying. Did I say 1? I meant at 6. Yeah.
Yes. And just look up all their combine Nick, Charlie, and Spencer's records last year.
Joke.
Do yourself that favor. It's an absolute joke. So it was hard to really expect this Baylor team to come in and match that level of productivity. They haven't done it so far, but there's so much room for growth. And I think there are certain guys that are playing well. You mentioned Adrian Boitan. He's out at Davis Cup playing for Romania, so he'll be out for a little while, I think, but he'll be back. He's fine. He's just at Davis Cup. I think he played well at the National Indoors. You were there, Gruskin. Adrian looked like the Adrian that we expect. You mentioned Mati. He's playing better tennis. Sven, both of those guys, Mati and Sven, moved up in the lineup against Oklahoma without Adrian, and they both won their matches in straight sets. That was good to see from those guys. The question marks come in with
all
Marco,
the newcomers,
right? Yeah. And Teddy, I think Mizuchi's been very good. I really do. I don't really have too many question marks about Wampi. He's been very good. Finn has been good. I've been really impressed with the way Finn has stepped up. And the thing about the Oklahoma match, guys, that was really, I think, probably the first true road environment that Baylor's played in this year. I know they went to Nebraska or whatever and played at Nebraska. That doesn't count. I'm talking about with fans in a hostile environment on the road. This was really the first match that they played. So it was a new experience for guys like Marco and Finn and players like that. And I think the most important thing for the Bears is just doubles. We have got to find a way to get doubles squared away. Because again, once Adrian comes back and the lineup is set, if they can just win doubles points, I'm confident they're going to find 3 singles wins, whether it's Adi, whether it's Matti, whether it's Sven, whether it's Finn or Wampi. I mean, there are so many guys that can find points, but you have to win doubles, because if you have to rely on winning 4 singles, it's just not going to happen. Look at what happened, in the Tennessee match at indoors. They lost that match 4-3. Barely, technically 4-2, but Matti had match points. I'm giving him the win there. It was a 4-3 match. They lost doubles and they split the singles. They've got to find a way to correct that. I believe they will. The talent is there. And for Coach Woodson, look, you have to look at it as a positive, because your team is not playing anywhere close to their best right now. They have so much room for growth. I think they're only going to get better, and they're still 14-1. You take it, you move on to the next matches.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree with you. TCU is better than them right now.
Right now, they are.
That said, when they had to play Texas, they stomped them at home. And obviously they're going to see the Longhorns again. And it's just getting everyone to click at once, Chris. This team hasn't done that. Now, on the flip side, if you're Oklahoma, it's a good loss. Like, you hung. And even without Boitan in the lineup, this is a team with so much talent everywhere. And Oklahoma competed really well everywhere. They were up a break in the deciding match in the third set, just weren't able to close the deal. Give me the Oklahoma perspective, Chris, but then obviously feel free to weigh in on Baylor as well.
Yeah. If you're Oklahoma, you have to be happy. I mean, you're not happy about being up 3-1 in the third on Wampi and losing the match. Obviously, you want to win. And nobody out there wants to lose. And they probably didn't come away thinking, at least we only lost 4-3. I'm sure they're not happy about losing, but it was a good match for them. If nothing else, that it will help them build some confidence. I mean, obviously they started the weekend with getting that over with a 7-0 win over A&M, and then following it up with that kind of performance, even in a loss. They have to build confidence off of that. That's a great job for them. And from Baylor, I'll just go back to, my big saying for teams when you're struggling: find a way.
Yeah,
good teams find a way. You're missing your top guy, somebody's hurt, the team's not playing well, whatever it is, the good teams find a way. And Baylor is managing to find a way. They lost one match, right, to Tennessee, and that's it. And everyone else, when they've gotten in a tough match and it's come down to it, they've found a way to get it done. And that's what a good team will do. So I'm with you, Gruskin. I don't think they're not in the best form. I wouldn't look at them and go, yep, they're a top 2 in the country right now. But they're going to compete. They're going to find ways, and they'll be there in the end, I think.
Yeah, I know. Again, Baylor Bears found a way to get the job done. Ultimately, that is what matters. The other result I have for us, our final result here of the week, and we've hit on a bunch: 4-3 Columbia over North Carolina. I don't know what to make of this North Carolina team. I really don't know what to make of this Columbia team either. I don't know what to make of the Ivy League right now. Where are you, Maddie?
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, tough match. Not totally shocked by the result.
Can I just read some names for you guys real quick? Casey Kenya, Peter Murphy, Henry Lieberman. It's a new day in North Carolina tennis. Blumberg and Rinke are gone. And Matt Kiger was out with an injury, obviously, but it's the next wave. The official page has been turned. That chapter of Carolina tennis is over. And that's not meant to be a criticism, but I got to get familiar with these new faces.
Yeah, but this isn't the chapter that you want to turn to. If you're Coach Sam Paul and Trip Phillips, and you're reading a book and you're flipping to this chapter, that's a problem. You want to flip back as fast as you can to the previous chapter, because that was the good times, man.
It's like in the 6th Harry Potter book when Snape kills Dumbledore, and you're like, I got to go back and read that again if you guys don't mind. Yeah.
I feel like if we're reading the North Carolina tennis book, I mean, we have to go back. We have to flip back to the better times, because this is not the team that they want. I mean, it's just, they've lost now at home to Columbia, and they lost at home to NC State, and they lost, Ohio State, that's really not that big of a deal. But I don't know, man. It is weird, right? It just feels weird to look at a North Carolina team who we've been so accustomed to being top 10, top 5 in the country, and they're nowhere close to that this year. I believe I took them out of I don't know where I have them in my rankings again. Chris can probably pull that up. I can't remember, but it's not great. If I do have them in the top 25, it's barely.
You don't?
I don't even have them. I took them out of my top 25. So I don't even have North Carolina in right now as a top 25 team. That kind of shows you how I feel about them. For Columbia, it's a good road win, right? You go on the road into North Carolina. That's never an easy place to play, and you pick up the win. So I think that's a positive. But we're always, again, Columbia is a team that we're always used to saying, oh, borderline top 10 team, best team in the Ivy League. They can scare all the top teams. This year, again, I'm not seeing it with Columbia. This is not the Columbia that had Victor Pham and all of those guys up at the top of their lineup that were so good. It's just, those days are over. So
I disagree with you about that in Columbia. If anything, this Columbia win tells me, okay, this team still is pretty good. And they, again, they haven't played in a year and a half, and they've got Kotzen at 1. And then they've got just a litany of options where, from Austin Huang to Hugo Hashimoto, all of these different guys, they're about the same. And a bunch of them are playing their first dual match season, despite being Columbia students for a little bit now. But you look at their results: 5-2 over VCU, 5-2 over Old Dominion, 4-3 over Oklahoma State. Now, these are borderline teams, but they're beating them all. Their only losses thus far in the year, the 4-3 win at North Carolina. They lost 4-3 at Tennessee. They lost 4-0 at Texas. That's it. Like, those are their only losses thus far this season. We still get to see them play a Big Ten gauntlet at Northwestern, at Michigan. We get to see them play Penn State at home, at USF. They should go 3-1 at a minimum in those matches. And once they do, with everyone in the Ivy League being as high as they are right now, the Harvards of the world and, Princeton's of the world, I don't think Columbia's out of it yet, Chris.
No, they're not out of it. I'm
out of it for a top 16 seed is what I'm obviously.
Yeah. I mean,
I don't
they
think
have they have chances, but I think it's going to be tough for them. There's not a lot of, outside of Harvard, they'll get decent points, say, over a Cornell, but it's the non-conference stuff that's going to do it for them. But even in the end, the North Carolina win's not going to be huge. It's not going to be the points that you would normally get for beating a North Carolina. On the flip side, Maddie was talking about North Carolina. If it wasn't for the one singular win they have over South Carolina at home, we'd be completely off the wagon on North Carolina. That's the one thing that has you going. But they showed up one day and they played a good match and beat South Carolina. But outside of that, they're really struggling. And a lot of new faces, as you were talking about, Gruskin down low. It's like you feel like, and it may not be true, and it's probably not even. We'd have to go back at the South Carolina scorecard and look and see who won. But you almost feel like Cernak and Seguin are they're like musts. You have to get them if you're going to have a chance. And then you almost feel like you need doubles too. And then of the bottom 4, you pick up one. If you lose doubles, you got to split those bottom 4. And it's, all these new guys, when you play these, if you're playing a Virginia or a Wake or, good luck trying to split the bottom 2 there, or the bottom 4, get 2 out of those.
Even
so
look at NC State. They lost to NC State already.
Yeah. Yeah. It's going to be a tough year for Carolina, but no, obviously the Columbia's got a good team. They've got a lot of guys. They've got a mix of new guys. And what's interesting there is you've got like new guys. Generally you see kind of experience at the top and new guys and inexperience at the bottom. They've got some in Westfall and Kotzen. They've got new guys at the top and then experienced guys like Wong at the bottom. It's that could be if the top guys start producing, really, really well for them, that could be very advantageous come the end of the year with your experience down low. But I still think it's going to be a little tough for them to hang into a top 16. They're just going to be one of those sort of dangerous 2 seeds stuck in that Eastern quadrant going to Virginia.
I was going to say, nice. Can't wait to watch them play Ohio State.
Gruskin, you cannot tell me that you prefer this Columbia team to the one from a few years ago that had Victor Pham and Jack Lynn and Jackie Tang and all those guys. There is no way that you can tell me with any type of confidence, unless you're just totally BSing me, that you like this Columbia team more. There's no way. There is no way.
Okay. Let me say this. I like this year's team next year. No. I like that.
That's not blah, blah, blah. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about right now.
I like this group a lot.
You would take this Columbia team over the Victor Pham, Jack Lynn, Jackie Tang, that type of team when Adam Ambrosi was there.
Right now, no. Yes. Well, May, yes.
This May,
I would. This May, yes. I think this team has more upside. I think it's deeper.
Disagree.
That's as bad as Maddie's A&M take from last week.
That's a bad take.
All right. You know what? I'm going to ride it. And I will say this. You may be down on them, but Chris, you look wonderful in a North Carolina polo shirt today or a Columbia polo. I'm not sure which one it is. But with all that said, those are results from the past week in Division I men's college tennis. Now we got two things left to do. Let's talk rankings. Let's talk week ahead. We'll start with our Crack Rackets top 10. Fairly stable at the top. In fact, I believe it's an identical top 5 to what we had last week. TCU, Ohio State, Tennessee, Baylor, Florida, your top 5. After that, South Carolina's moved up to the number 6 spot. 7 is Wake Forest. Of course, the Gamecocks beat Wake in their matchup this season. Number 8 right now, Kentucky. Number 9, Texas. And number 10 is Stanford. Again, a couple of teams here and there, probably different order than you guys placed it. Directionally, I don't feel like there's that much movement at the top this week, Maddie.
No, well, there's no movement at the top. I think the top 5 are the same. I'm glad.
We're talking top 10 in general. Like,
top 10 in
the
general.
Same group. Like the top 25 is where the real movement is.
Oh, for sure. I do think it's interesting we have Stanford in there. I know both Chris and I ranked USC ahead of Stanford. So it's interesting to see Stanford slip in there at number 10 instead of USC. I find that interesting. But you know what? I had Stanford at 11, so I have no qualms about that. I'm okay with it. All the other 9 teams, I had them up there as well. Not in the same order. I do still have Texas ahead of Kentucky, in my opinion, just based on the eye test and some other reasons. But no, I think it's a solid pull.
I should have had Virginia higher to ensure they got in the top 10. I didn't have any California teams in my top 10.
That would be virtually USC, impossible given me and Maddie's rankings.
Yeah. Well, if I could have snuck them in at like 6th, but it just would have been some mind contortion there.
Still would have made it.
Yeah. Well, no, because I didn't have Stanford. I don't think Jay had Stanford. It would have been close. Anyways, point being, Chris, thoughts?
Oh, I don't have any issues. I'm with Maddie. I had USC above Stanford, but no, I mean it's the right teams in the right areas of the rankings, and we'll see. I was thinking as you were talking earlier, Gruskin, how when we were talking about the out west teams, and we're all going, well, I don't know how I feel about any of them right now. And the funny thing is, just to see what a little bit of confidence will do for you and the people looking at you, I guarantee you that by time May comes around, you're going to have an opinion, right? We don't know what it's going to be now because they haven't played those matches and we haven't gotten to see them prove themselves. But I'll bet you come May, I doubt that we're all sitting here still going, I have no idea how to rank these teams. I will bet that we're going to look at one of them and go, yeah, they're definitely a quarterfinal team, right? Yeah. And don't know whether that's going to be USC or Stanford, or, it'll be hard to say that's Pepperdine just because of the schedule they're going to play. But, somebody's probably going to step up and look the part over the next couple months.
No doubt about that. And with that in mind, who's got the chance to look the part this week? Let's get to our week ahead. It's a lot of good action across the board. Even if South Carolina at NC State is canceled, you've got Texas at Georgia on Tuesday, Michigan at TCU on Wednesday. Then we get to Friday, conference play starting just about everywhere. You've got Tennessee at Mississippi State, South Carolina at Florida, Virginia at Duke. You've got Virginia at North Carolina as well. I don't think that's a doubleheader. I think that's an incorrect thing on the website right now, Chris. But just so you know, NC State at Florida State, Oklahoma at Arizona. These are all Friday matches, folks. And of course, we'll have
Wake at Miami.
Home. Wake at Miami. That's a good litmus test, of course. Then we get to Saturday. SMU at San Diego, I think, is pretty darn interesting. Wichita at Texas Tech becomes a must-win for Wichita. TCU at Illinois? No, just kidding. But I think I'll be at that match, so that's a plus. And then we get to Sunday, and it's like Tennessee at Ole Miss, Florida at Kentucky, Wake at Florida State, Georgia at Mississippi State, Virginia at North Carolina, Clemson at Notre Dame. Everywhere you look, it's fantastic tennis across the board. Maddie, what are you watching most closely? Give me your thoughts on the week ahead.
Well, everything you just named is, we're going to have to be tuning into those. I'm just excited for conference play, guys. I do always enjoy the early season non-conference matches when you can get some of the best teams from other conferences and regions playing each other. But now it really heats up, right? This is the part of the season where you have to start playing your best during the conference play. You want to get that top seed or top couple seeds so you can go into your conference tournament feeling good and everything. So no, man, there's not really any of these matches that I'm going to miss out on. I'm going to at least be following the scores of all of these. The Florida matches are very interesting, right? Kentucky, they're at Kentucky, and they're also at or South Carolina's at Florida. Am I reading that right, Chris? So South Carolina at Florida and then Florida at Kentucky.
The
interesting.
SEC, they've done that a couple years now to Florida, sending them for a home and then away match at Kentucky the same
That
weekend.
Is interesting. That's very interesting. And so I will be dialed into those two matches for sure, because those are both huge matches for Florida. So I'm interested there. Gruskin, you brought up the Duke, Virginia, and then Virginia, UNC. Those are big ACC matches. They're all big, right? We're talking about matches now that are really, really important. So it's tough to just pick out a couple.
Yeah. Chris?
Yeah, the South Carolina, Florida, from the SEC standpoint, number 6, number 7 playing each other. I think that's going to be that's the match for me this weekend that I'll be probably paying the most attention to early. The other thing that we didn't talk about, and I wish I would have done this research ahead of time. You mentioned Boitan being out because of Davis Cup. Yep. How many guys are out for that could affect a match? Like I was just thinking off the top of my head, is Phil Henning playing for South Africa? I assume he is. You drop Henning out and they played Mercer today. Okay. Which not a match they were going to lose, but that slid Paulsell to 5 and Pena to 6. Yeah. You play that lineup opening weekend in the SEC. That's, that things are getting a little dicey, right? How many other folks out there are in a situation like that where they've got some kids that have gone back to play Davis Cup? So, I think those will be interesting. And I actually, if I can, I would love to make it over to Kentucky on Sunday to watch that Florida Kentucky match. That should be a good one.
That'll be heated.
It's gonna be fun.
I'll tell you, yeah, I'm looking forward actually to the Wake Florida State match, as well as NC State Florida State. From an ACC perspective, Maddie, that's NC State and Florida State, both in the those teams trying to jump up and challenge for that what we think is probably the 3 spot there,
right?
And they're going to get chances to show themselves this weekend. So I think those will be good matches.
I agree with that. And Miami again, Wake at Miami, and then NC State at Miami as well, I believe. So both of those, the Miami and the Florida State matchups, will be critical, no doubt.
It's going to be a really fun weekend of tennis. And again, we've got action for you here at Cracked Racquets moving forward throughout this college tennis regular season. Every Friday, our Cracked Racquets Red Zone broadcast will cover all of the SEC action, men's and women's, happening across the country. You can find those broadcasts on the team pages for each of these SEC schools. Of course, every Sunday, we're going to have our Big Ten Red Zone broadcast. You can find that broadcast on our Cracked Racquets YouTube channel. Again, Fridays, SEC, Sundays, Big Ten Hope you'll stick with us throughout the course of this 2022 college tennis season as we try to take our coverage here at Cracked Racquets to the next level. Of course, why are we able to do that? Because of the support we get from our friends at SwingVision. And I apologize for not informing you about their excellence at the beginning. I will remind all of you here at the end. For the latest and greatest in tennis technology, turn to our friends at SwingVision. It's artificial intelligence for your tennis. You can learn more about them by clicking on the link in the description to this show. You're going to want to get signed up as soon as you learn more. And when you do, use our promo code CRACK20. Not only will you let them know we sent you their $20 discount, 14-day pro trial. Again, if you want to get better, we don't have time for private lessons once you're over the age of 18, right? Once you have a real life, a real job, every hitting, every session, every learning you're doing on the court, you're doing all that learning on your own. How can you learn better? With our friends at SwingVision. Learn more about the SwingVision app. Click on that link in the podcast description. Use that promo code CRACK20 upon sign out. With all that said, guys, again, a huge thank you to you both for recording early here this week. We will be live again next week, 7 p.m. Eastern time, Thursday. We'll be able to interact with all of you. We are grateful to all of you who tuned in. And we're always extraordinarily grateful to super producer Daniel Westoff, who has the toughest job in the business, editing my voice, seeing my face all day, then walking out of his room and learning that I am still his roommate. Shout out to him and congratulations. Of course, our love goes out to the Westoff family. With all that said, gentlemen, start with you, Matty. Any final thoughts?
No, good chat here, guys. Last weekend was fun, but I do think this weekend will be even more fun. We've got many more matches on the schedule. So I think next week's episode is going to be pretty good.
All I can think about is how am I going to ever make these shows under an hour? I don't freaking know. Chris, fine. We're just going to have to play one long game of good win, bad loss.
Yeah, it's impossible when you got a week behind you, a week ahead of you, the rankings. It's not possible. No, yeah, just looking forward to the SEC season for me getting going on the weekend. It's going to be fun to see the first weekend.
Yeah, I'll see you on Friday then. And with all of that said, for my fantastic co-host, the two other members of our college tennis Willie Trinity, Matt the Crack Stachowiak, Chris Halioris, our super producer Daniel Westoff, our friends at SwingVision, from all of us here at both Cracked Racquets and the Tennis Channel Podcast Network, I am your host, Alex Gruskin. Gentlemen, what do we tell our listeners?
Hey. Great shot.
You got leave it in, Westoff. Leave it in. I've been messing with his brain. Hey, great
Gruskin
shot to you.
In my head. He's in my head.
Oh, you should see us on the tennis court, and we will see you all next week. Thanks, everyone.